Comics That Work, episode 5, and with me as a co-host is Drew from Comics for Fun and Profit. Hi, Drew, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
I am doing pretty fine. And today we're going to be talking about Why the Last Man, number 1. It's this little independent comic. I don't think anybody's ever heard of it, but...
A fledgling writer named Brian K. Vaughan. I think he might be something someday.
Yeah. I've read some other stuff by him, and he's not bad.
Yeah, he's all right.
All right, so those new to the show, this podcast is basically just trying to figure out what makes a good comic from different people's perspectives. Every episode I'm going to have a new co-host on, Drew this time, and they're going to choose a book, and we're going to be discussing it, the craft, the themes, just what makes it work. So, before we start, though, I just kind of want to talk about your experience with comics and your podcast, too. I'm going to start off with just asking you what kind of got you into comics, or at least when did you become a serious comic reader?
Well, I guess I first got into comics through collecting baseball cards. And there was a little shop in my hometown called Dog-Eared Books that had baseball cards, and I was a really big Angels fan, California Angels fan at the time, not Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim that they are now. And I was really into Wally Joyner and Rod Carew and some of their stars for some reason. And I love the Reds, so I was always into Reds cards. So I'd go there all the time looking for baseball cards. And they also had a rack of comics. And my only experience with comics up to that point were like Richie Rich comics and stuff that were around the house. And I had a few Sergeant Rocks that I always dug. But I was never really a comic. But they just kind of appeared. I don't remember how I got them. But now this place had actual like key books on a wall, and they had back issue bins, and they had new releases. And so it was kind of my first experience with that. And I remember picking up Moon Knight and thinking that was the coolest thing, and read that. And then West Coast Avengers came out, and that was really cool. And that was my first experience with like a mini series. And that became its own ongoing after that. That was kind of all new to me. And so it was a couple of Marvel titles that kind of got me into the hobby. And I tried to stay current as well as I could on my allowance, which was not very much. Yeah. And so it was kind of a struggle. And then, as I got older and got a car and girls became more important, comics kind of faded for a while until college. Mm-hmm. And in college, I was able to buy Watchmen off the rack and nice. Dark Knight Returns, and some of the real seminal works of the medium, and thought that stuff was amazing. And then the 90s crash kind of happened with all the foil covers and stuff that kind of ruined the market for a while, and it ruined the taste for me as well. And I kind of took a break for a while. And at that point, my brother kind of was talking to me about this new show that was coming out called Walking Dead, and it was based on a comic book. And we're watching the show and talking about it and how much we loved it. And that kind of got me back into a comic book shop for the first time in a long time. Oh, wow. Seriously. I mean,
you stopped reading comics between the 90s and when the Walking Dead show came. Wow.
Yeah. And so that also coincided with the New 52 happening, which was a big deal. And it looked like it was tailor-made for lapsed readers at the time. And, easy way to just get back in all these number ones and start over again. And that kind of and started listening to podcasts about comics, and it really kind of fueled the fire again for me. And that that's really what got me started hard and heavy into reading again heavily. Then there were probably times where I would sample of them again for a little while and try to pick up a subscription box at a comic shop or do some mail order in between their time, but it never really took for long periods of time, sustained comic collecting, 6 months here, 6 months there. Something else would come up and I'd just have to leave it behind again. Money was tight, whatever. And so this was like 2011 was really the first time I was really back into it heavy, and I really haven't stopped since then. So about 6 years solid of heavy collecting again. And that kind of led to listening to podcasts and then co-hosting on a podcast and then starting my own podcast. And I can't get enough of comic books and the comic book industry, and it's just something that I really enjoy. And sometimes I love to hate it because it drives me crazy and it frustrates me. But a lot of times I still really enjoy reading the comics themselves, and if I focus on that, it's always fun.
Awesome. So you pretty much decided to make your own podcast after getting back into that and all that. What was the idea that inspired you to make Comics for Fun and Profit?
Well, I'm a reader first and a collector second, and my brother is a collector first, at a reader second. So he was more interested in the values of comics and selling them and making money, and I was more interested in reading the comics, but I also like money. So we kind of came at it from an angle of speculation, and comics come out every week, and which ones might be the ones that rise in value and are worth you investing your $4 or $5 in, and could turn into something either short-term profits or long-term profits. So we came up with the name Comics for Fun and Profit. I was the fun, he was the profit. Mm-hmm. And he would probably argue the opposite. So we decided to go at it from that angle, and that would be our niche, because there were so many comic podcasts out in 2011, 2012, that era, that it just seemed like, well, if we just do reviews, as everybody's doing reviews, if we just do interviews, well, there's a lot of people that are doing interviews. They're all doing a better job than we would do. So what can be our angle? So that's why that was kind of our unique angle to fit in the pod space of this incredibly small niche market, and we were trying to even shave it even thinner. So comics are a small niche, and then within comics are folks that buy them to sell them later. So it was probably not the largest audience that we were shooting for, but it's grown steadily over time, and we've seemed to have found an audience that appreciates what we have to say and give us great feedback and challenge us when we're wrong. And it's been a fun conversation to have over 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea. I've kind of talked to James and Eric from the Cowcast about, well, your podcast and just their podcast and all that. And you're right, there are a lot of just comic review podcasts, and those are fun. And I think that even if somebody decided to start one now, I do think that that would have potential, but you're definitely doing something different than that hadn't really been done before. You really offer something new to the table.
Yeah, at the time, when I think we were the only one in the space. Okay. There are a handful now that go after that same kind of their same focus is now on flipping books or investment books and stuff. So some of them do a really good job as well. So there's a lot more of them out there than were out there 5-6 years ago. Well,
you started something then.
I guess, or I just noticed it. Maybe.
What kind of comics are you into these days? I mean, you can talk to me about like your favorite comics of all time, and also kind of touch on what you read right now, and maybe even kind of what you speculate on these days.
Yeah, I'm an Image. I really am fully embraced Image when I came back to comics, and they were doing amazing things. Saga and Walking Dead were the kind of the 1-2 punch that, I just loved them. And everything back then that they put out, I just devoured. I was completely all in and read every single thing that they put out. And less so now, but I'm not quite as they're putting out 50 books a month now, so it's tougher to be all in, and not all of it's great. Mm-hmm. But it's that kind of sensibility, that creator owned, not a superhero comic. That's my favorite now. I still read Marvel and DC. I still have some favorites in there as well, but my bread and butter and the stuff that I love are the back half of previews, those small publishers. I like Aftershock. I like a lot of the Oni Press and like some Zenoscope stuff. I like Dynamite, some of the stuff that they do. I like most of the, I like to find those small publishers, Albatross Funny Books, folks like that are doing their own thing and a little smaller and less corporate. Although I think Dynamite's pretty corporate. But and then I still like Spider-Man, Batman, and I read probably 3 or 4 or 5 of those each week from the big 2, and then the rest of my reading list is Image and in back half books.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Marvel and DC stuff out, but I think it's kind of undeniable that Image and more independent publishers often have the higher quality stuff, at least the most inspired stuff, because it's kind of uncontrolled creativity. It's people's personal visions. And
there are creators that I love their creator-owned work, and I just can't warm up to their big 2 work. Mm-hmm. Some of it, Jason Aaron, who I love Southern Bastards. It's one of my favorites as well. And I love Thor. I think he's doing a great job with Thor, but some of his other stuff hasn't really connected with me. I could never get into his Doctor Strange, and some of the other things that he was doing just didn't connect with me. Somebody like Tom King, who I loved Vertigo, always loved Vertigo, and was a huge Sandman fan back in the day. And of course, why The Last Man is Vertigo, but I like his stuff. Like Sheriff of Babylon I thought was amazing, and I loved his work on the Vision, and it took me a while to warm up to his Batman, but I'm kind of bought in now and like it a lot. But yeah, mm-hmm. I kind of chase writers really, and I like to see how a writer can take a blank slate, and it's usually a blank slate in a non-Big 2 book, because you have all these pre-established characters, you have all these pre-established continuity and things that have happened before, that readers already have this predetermination of what this is going to be. But when you get a book from a creator-owned comic and it's a blank slate and they have to build a world from nothing in 20 or 30 pages, that's the stuff that, when they do it well, I really love that, and I find that stuff inspiring, and it gets my juices going, because that's what it's all about, is on ramps and pulling you into a story and getting you to fall in love with the characters and what's going on with them, and caring about them enough to follow their adventures every month.
Kind of interesting you're talking about Batman. It's a very different book.
Yeah. It's totally different than the Scott Snyder stuff.
Mm-hmm. They're kind of, in my opinion, they're kind of like some issues that are a little like, I'm not really sure how I feel about them, and then there's some issues that just like hit you.
Yeah.
That one issue in I Am Suicide with like all double page spreads. That was a good one. And
yeah, he does some interesting layout choices. He and his artist. They do some fun stuff, and you know, some of the stuff they were doing with Sheriff of Babylon with the 9 and 12 and 16 panel grids. It was like, wow, this is just wall to wall talking heads, but it was really cool, and I just love what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything about Tom King's Batman, I appreciate that it's the main Batman title right now, but it makes a lot of unconventional choices that you really don't expect in a Batman proper book. So I respect him for that, and it was kind of a tangent that I went off on, but
hey, I did the same thing, so yeah. I took you there.
I think we're ready to go into the book then.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a spoiler warning right now about Why the Last Man, issue number 1, and we might possibly spoil some future Why the Last Man issues as well. I have to be completely honest, I haven't read much of this series. I think I read the first full volume, maybe the first 2 a while ago. Just reread the first issue for this episode. But if there's something that you need to bring up, don't be afraid to spoil it for me, because the episode comes first.
No, yeah, there's 60 issues in this run, and they're not all perfect, but I think this first issue is a real grabber, and something that really sets the tone for what this thing could be. And yeah, I really dig first issues when they work, and I think this works. So
yeah, it's definitely just a great introduction, just the way it's all laid out, and everything. But so this is a Vertigo book. When was it published? Between 2002 and 2008. I kind of thought it was older than that, but there you go.
No, it's not that old. And I didn't read it when it came out. Yeah, this was part of the times when I was not reading comics, so I didn't know it existed, and discovered after reading Saga, I started devouring everything he did, and this came up, and was like, wow, how did I miss this thing? Yeah. It's pretty amazing.
It's kind of hard to believe just thinking about it now. This ended only like a few years before Saga started, because I think that was like 2012. Yeah.
Yeah, 2012. Yeah.
So, written by Brian K. Vaughan, who his big book right now is Saga. He also works on Paper Girls. Other books he's known for. Trying to think of some off the top of my head.
Oh, he did Ex Machina over, that was a great 50-issue run. I really liked that a lot. He started this online pay what you want model with panelsyndicate.com, and his first launch was The Private Eye with Marcus Martin on art. It's a beauty to behold. It's a landscape comic, so it's great to read digitally. It was only going to be digital, and they had kind of swore that it would never be printed, and had since ended up putting out a nice hardcover version of it. You can still get all the digital titles on panelsyndicate.com for whatever you want. So I sampled the first one for 99 cents. I thought that seemed fair, and then felt guilty because I didn't give them enough. And it's really cool. You could give them a penny. You can give them $0. You could give them $10 if you wanted to. It's really up to you and what you would get out of their comics on Panel Syndicate. So it's a real cool model. He's published 2 or 3 other things. Barrier is one of them on there, which I don't care for as much. One of the few Brian K. Vaughns I don't like. He also did a graphic novel called Pride of Baghdad.
Oh yeah, I've read that one.
That
one's really good.
It was really good. He did the first few volumes of The Runaways for Marvel, which well regarded, critically acclaimed. Also, one I have not finished yet. So I have those trades and started them, but I haven't finished those yet. What else did he do? He did. Probably should have pulled up his DB. I didn't even think about it. He did something with Steve Scrossi. That was a 6-issue miniseries. That was okay. We Stand on Guard, it's called. And that was right in between Saga and Paper Girls. And, of course, Paper Girls, which you mentioned. He did a Walking Dead one-shot, which was cool. His version of Walking Dead, that was a fun one.
Yeah, I think the story behind that was Robert Kirkman made a deal with him to get Private Eye published in hardcover. Yes. And the deal was that Brian K. Vaughan got to write a Walking Dead story.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at that echelon of stardom, super stardom writers, I mean, it's kind of cool that they do that stuff. It's pretty neat. Yeah, so he's pretty prolific. He did a great Doctor Strange series called The Oath. Mm-hmm. That's well regarded, and it should. I'm sure at some point in Marvel Cinematic Universe will be given the treatment. I'm thinking. Yeah, tons of stuff. He is the man. He is probably my favorite writer, and so what better way to honor that than by selecting one of his first issues and talking about it.
There's so much of his that I haven't read. I've read this a little bit, Pride of Baghdad, Paper Girls, and Saga. But I mean, everything I've read of his is just great. He's a very good storyteller on so many levels.
Yeah, and it's simultaneously super accessible, but also it is intelligent and challenging, and it really, I think some of the stuff that you would think, maybe he's just phoning it in or something, it's still is high quality stuff. So he's brilliant.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly why. Maybe we can discuss this a little bit, but I think that his work is also probably some of the most accessible comics out there. Like, if I'm thinking about comics that I would recommend to somebody who doesn't really read comics that much, I would often think of recommending Saga, just because I feel like his books have a very, very cinematic feel to them. They're simple enough as far as the comic storytelling goes. There's something about it that's.
I don't know that. I mean, I think you have to have someone with a certain sensibility that can stomach the, because he's out there sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And definitely.
He pushes the envelope as far as sexual content and things. So you have to make sure that you're up for the ride, especially with Saga, because it ends on splash pages of things that you've, or sometimes has double page splashes in the middle that are just like, what? Where did that come from, and whose imagination did that spring forth from? Because it's amazing and crazy and so out there, and I find it fascinating and inventive. I can't understand there are people that don't like the adultness of it. So I get that.
I feel like in Saga it's just kind of it's done for shock value a lot of the time, but I don't think it interrupts with the flow of the story at all. And
no,
it's kind of interesting. I don't really think of Brian K. Vaughan as someone who writes very mature content, but when you think about the stuff that's in Saga, like that's some of the most graphic things I've seen in comic books.
Oh yeah.
But you don't think of him as like as a Garth Ennis or anything. He's just it's kind of interesting how I just kind of forget about that. But yeah. While it's accessible, I would definitely only recommend his work to someone with a strong stomach, at least with some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's ever really like gory. I don't think he really goes for the gore.
No, definitely not.
But you know, he does some challenging things that that can rub people the wrong way, and I get that. Mm-hmm. It's not for everyone.
I think it's unrestrained. His work. I think he's able to kind of understand the views of all of the characters and kind of put himself out of, I don't even know what I'm saying, but I don't feel like he kind of goes out of his way to do that. He wants to let the story kind of form freely.
Yes. And that's kind of, I think that was the exact thing I was thinking of.
Yeah, that image is stuck in my head.
It's burned.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I have the hardcover for the first 18, and man, it's just amazing. It's just a great start, and you know I don't think it's really lost a step. I know some folks think it has, but you know there was a recent issue where one of the characters lost a baby, and it faded to black and in such a way, and there was like multiple black pages that ended the book, and I was like, this is really kind of innovative and powerful stuff, you know, and to write it that way and say, yeah, this is how it's going to end, and it's black. No, it wasn't a baby. It was a character that died, but they died in such a way that it faded to black, and it was really, really powerful. And it affected me, you know, 40 some issues in with a comic that, you know, you could be jaded with, and to still be able to hit these notes and manipulate the reader in such a way as to take them on this ride, and it's really impressive, and I find it inspiring, and you know, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little jealous. You know, I will never be Brian K. Vaughan, but man, wouldn't it be nice? I can still find inspiration in great stuff that gives me something to shoot for.
I should also mention the artist. Do you know how to pronounce the artist's name?
It's Pia Guerra.
Pia Guerra. Okay, that's what I would have guessed. Actually, that's the penciler, and Jose Marzan Jr. is the inker. So interesting.
But Pia is the artist that gets the top billing.
Most definitely. You definitely see less of separate pencilers and inkers these days.
Yeah, this was probably done old school. Mm-hmm. And not digitally.
Awesome. Well, the first issue, we should start out just kind of explaining the basic premise to anyone who hasn't read it.
Sure.
I'm sure it unfolds into something completely different. I mean, it becomes a little more complex, but it just basically all the men die.
Yeah. All but Yorick.
So the first page starts out with the moment that all men die, and it has this black panel that just says Brooklyn, New York, now. It's a very interesting first page. It just has two characters talking, and then the last panel, this woman just says all the men are dead.
Yeah, and then she has a gun to her head.
Yeah.
She has a gun to her head. She's a cop, and we don't know. Are these our main characters? We're not sure. Because it is just the first page, and it's 5 horizontal panels on a page, and I kind of like that breakdown. It's really good for storytelling, and it really works. But then I think it's one of those just preface pages. What's the writing term? Is that media res, where you drop someone in and then flash back to see how they got there?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. You see it a lot, and I find it to be a crutch by a lot of writers and to help them tell their story because they don't know how to do it. In this case, I do not feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, the next page goes to a much more laid-back setting, 29 minutes before the first page. So it kind of sets up this issue that's going to eventually lead up to this event where all the men die.
Yeah, and this is where we first get to meet Yorick. He's the Y in Y the Last Man, and so I don't think we know his name yet. So I jumped the gun a little bit. I don't think he's been called Yorick as of this moment. So yeah, I guess we don't really know. He is upside down in gravity boots, hanging from a pull-up bar, and he has a straitjacket on, and so he's upside down, and he's talking on phone, a satellite phone, with his girlfriend, who is running in Australia, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's Australia that she's in. I just love this scene. Just start out with this gruesome, depressing, chaotic page, and then it all just goes to like, oh, what's this guy doing here?
Yeah. It's just really mundane relationship stuff and some character building, but it sets the tone for who this guy is. And I mean, I don't think his dialogue is perfect here as in his conversation. I find him likable, but I think there are like a few things where you kind of take a pause and like, this guy's kind of a loser in some ways, and I'm assuming that's what Brian was going for. So sometimes your hero character can be flawed, and you can still root for him, and so I like that too.
Yeah, there are a lot of moments, just lines that he says that are kind of over dramatic in this dorky way. And
groan worthy stuff. Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting how that communicates onto the page. I think he's very good at writing dialogue because you can tell the tone that the characters are talking in, and it flows very smoothly. I think all of his writing flows very smoothly, and I think he might be the best comic writer when it comes to that.
Yeah. So I mean, we get just a couple of pages here. So we've got 4 pages of conversation between Yorick and his girlfriend, and enough to establish who that is. Yorick gets another call, and then we're going to jump again to a new set of characters, another new location, to meet his mom, who is a representative in Congress, and not your. I think she's a Democrat, but she's a right-leaning Democrat, I think, because some of her stances on abortion, and she doesn't want to play ball with the senators who have a bill that's gone through, and that causes some tension, and but it does set up who this person is, who has given birth to Yorick, who we still don't know his name, so I don't know why I keep calling him Yorick.
Oh, I think it says it on the 3rd page, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I think his girlfriend says it. So yeah, and I mean, again with the flow when it skips to Washington D.C., it
could be jarring. It could be it could have been a jarring transition.
Well, yeah, she's talking on the phone with him, and
it helps.
Picks up on the conversation right where it left off on the last page, even though it's a completely different scene. And
yeah, so it's a really. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's kind of hard to be able to write a story while also keeping in mind like how much actual time this is taking up. I mean, I don't know exactly how he does it. Maybe he just like talks out the dialogue and times it himself.
Well, it's 29. It's a 29-minute real-time comic that takes 31 pages to get through. So you're not even doing a page a minute, and so that's a unique storytelling device, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it could be done wrong pretty easily too, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we go from Mom, the congressman, back to Yorick and the girlfriend, and then we meet Ampersand, who Ampersand is the monkey. He has a pet monkey. A bit of absurdity that, in the hands of a lesser writer, might not make sense. You might not be able to fix that, but it's quickly explained in such a way that you're like, okay, so he's got a monkey.
He's got a pet monkey.
That's fine.
He applied for, I guess.
Yeah, that he applied for. It's absurd, and I guess a little bit of that might be lampshading and saying, we know it's crazy, but here we need this monkey for something, so you're gonna have to follow along.
Mm-hmm. And I think it works, and it also shows a lot about his character, and as you said, kind of how he's a loser, and he ended up not getting this job that he applied for too, and you're just kind of seeing he's trying to find meaning in a lot of things.
Yeah, and the best way to find meaning in your life is magic. Mm-hmm. So become a magician and escape artist or whatever he's going for,
and get a monkey.
And
he's having a midlife crisis, even though he's probably in his mid-20s.
Yes, I think you might be right there. And then we do another switch. We're now 18 minutes ago, and we're meeting kind of a real type A, strong female character who is she Israeli army?
Yeah, I don't know if it clearly says, but that would make sense. Just social context of everything.
Yeah, that's kind of the sense I was getting. And it's been so long since I've finished this run. I can't remember specifically what her role is in this. I remember vaguely, but I don't want to just guess because it's issues ahead when she comes back into play. You may remember easier since you just read the first volume, or you say first two volumes you read.
Oh, well, I read those years ago, so I don't remember too well.
Yeah, she's a badass, and she's protecting some reporters, and I'm sure we'll find out a little bit more about her later. So it should be good stuff. Yeah,
he very casually brings up a lot of mystery. I mean, these 2 pages with her on these, you don't really know what her deal is when York's mother is talking to the senator. He mentions to somebody else 355, and it's kind of a mystery to what that means, and we kind of figure it out later in this issue.
Yeah,
but there's a lot that isn't explained, but I think it's done in a very smart way where enough of it is explained that you're not completely lost. You just don't have all the details.
Yes. So then from there, we transition back again to the conversation between Yorick and girlfriend. And they're continuing to banter back and forth. And she thinks something's up because she knows him well and is kind of pumping him for a little more information. But we don't spend a lot of time on that, just a page. And then we go to Jordan. We fly over to Al Jarrah, Jordan, 13 minutes ago to meet Dr. Was it Farzan Hamad?
Yeah.
And this character, another character. So we've got quite a cast already. It's a very large cast. Just 15 pages in, we've met quite a few different characters in quite a few locations, and this could feel unwieldy, but it doesn't. It doesn't feel unwieldy yet. I feel like he's got a firm grasp of who everyone is, and not sure how they're all going to interact. But this technique of moving from one locale to the other, it seems kind of smooth. It's kind of smooth how it transitions from one area to the other and back again.
Very. And yeah, it skips around a lot, but I feel like Yorick's conversation with his girlfriend is kind of what connects it all together. I mean, at least it's the one scene that recurs between all the other scenes.
Yeah.
And makes it very clear that that's our main character too.
Now is then Dr. Farzan seems to be shot and killed. And then the person who was protecting, is that a dude or a girl?
No, it's a woman. And I guess her name is Agent 355. So that's what I was talking about with the conversation earlier.
There we go.
Like, I guess we don't really know what the tie to that senator is, or
and why the president's talking about this agent. So, the president talked about 355, and so it's a high level that agent, whatever that agent is doing, is very high level, and that's why the senator that was pressing Yorick's mom had to go so abruptly earlier in the book, and so it's a top level thing. From in some kind of conspiracy, some kind of murky shadow government transaction happening. So we know that, but we don't know what it is. Again, we slide back from this person getting shot, this ambulance, the Agent 355, back to the conversation. And then Yorick's got to pop a question, and the girlfriend also has some news. So we leave it on that, and then, but it's kind of a cool way they do it. She says, "I have something I have to tell you that I should tell you," and then we transition to a new character saying, "I'm having a baby." So it's kind of a cool connection. Like, I wonder if that's what the girlfriend was going to say.
And I have a feeling we don't find out for another like 30, maybe 60 issues.
Exactly.
Judging how this issue ends. But yeah, transitions are just great in this.
Yeah, and then we meet yet another character who is a professor, a biotech professor, who's also having a baby that happens to be her clone. So we're doing Brian K. Vaughan crazy touches here, and his so we've got a person who is genetically modifying her own clone and giving birth to herself, and that's just in here. That's just a new character that we meet. With a very unique plot point about her, and that's odd. That's strange.
I was wondering what's going on here.
Yeah, and why is that important? And and could that not really take away from this story about this guy and his girlfriend? You're really going in a lot of different directions at this point, Brian, and. But I think as the reader, we are all still on board 100% and enjoying this ride. And then we transition to yet another ride where Hero is Yorick's sister, and she's a bit of a whore. It seems she gets around. She drives an ambulance and is banging one of the fire department guys. And according to one of the standby people that are talking and gossiping about her, she's worked her way through the fireman's calendar. And but this one might be the one. So, and she's getting a call from her mom about her father's birthday, which is why she called Yorick in the first place. The mom called Yorick in the first place as well, as to remind her about her father's birthday. And I can't remember, what does he do for a living?
He's some sort of professor.
Yeah.
Doesn't really specify what kind.
It's got to be an English professor, right? Or a literature professor, because he names his kids Hero and Yorick.
Yeah, and that would make sense why Yorick calls his monkey Ampersand.
Yeah. So now that I think we're done meeting new characters at this point. So 26 pages in, we've met a ton of characters. So there we met the sister. Back to the conversation, and he is trying to pop the question and ask his girlfriend half a world away to marry him. And we don't know what the answer is. We don't know what happens on that side. And then we start flashing around to all the characters that are now caught up to current day, which is where we started at the very beginning, with the cop who was on the street trying to explain that everybody was dying, all the men are dying, and now we're seeing it happen in real time with all our characters. And it's a very effective juxtaposition, because there's a ton of these that are happening just in rapid fire succession, just panel after panel after panel. And he threw a black panel in there. I'm not sure what that's supposed to signify, but he goes from the biotech professor that inserts a black band in one of the panels, and then continues with the remaining characters and having the men in those scenes die. It is pretty effective stuff, pretty bloody, and shows the worldwide devastation of all the men dying simultaneously, and how that happens. And then we're back to the female cop who was in the first pages, and we hear she finishes with the gun to her head. She finishes what she was started.
Yeah,
and we hear
it's actually a repeat of the last panel from the first page, where she says all the men are dead.
Yeah, and now she pulls the trigger, and Yorick hears it inside his house, where he's been holed up for a while, so he's missed out on all this. And kind of everything, that's where we end. It's Yorick hearing that, and we don't know what he discovers. And why is he still alive? If all the men have died, why is he around? And we kind of know from the title that he's the last man.
Yeah, also I don't feel like the main character in the first issue would die in a 60-issue run.
Yeah, exactly.
I could be wrong. I haven't read all this, so maybe he's dead the whole time.
It is the Sixth Sense. Yep, that's exactly what. Yeah, you called it.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
This last splash page, again, tying things together, because he hears the bang outside of his window from that cop shooting herself in the head, and at first you don't really know that that's even in the same city as he is, but that's kind of Brian K. Vaughan doesn't really need to tie it together that way, but he does, and it works, and it seems very natural. And yeah, he's on the phone too, and he says hello, which shows you that he doesn't know the answer, and he's lost contact with his girlfriend.
Yeah. He just asked her to marry him. The connection's gone. There's a gunshot. We know all the men are dead. He does not, so he'll be discovering that in the next issue, we assume. So I put this down when I first read it, and initially, and I said, "Oh my God, give me the next issue." Thank God I was reading it in trade, so I didn't have to wait very long. But I can't imagine reading this in floppy single issue off the rack. And I mean, I would have been jazzed about this and psyched for the next one. And that's what a first issue should do. A first issue should, this is my opinion, but I think a first issue has to build the world, introduce the character, make us care about that character, and make us want to read the next issue. I mean, if it does those four things, it's successful in my mind. And I checks all those boxes for me. I like him. I'm rooting for this guy, and there's a lot of craziness going on, and I want to know more about, and it propels me into issue 2 and beyond. So this is a comic that works for me.
Yeah, it throws a lot at you, and it gives you. Well, I was going to say a lot of his issues, maybe even all of them, end with a cliffhanger. And I actually have a friend who read Saga in trade and said that he probably couldn't even stand reading it monthly just because of how many cliffhangers there are.
Oh yeah, I read it in single issues, and you get to the end and you're like, oh wow, what's next?
Yeah.
Gimme.
When you really look at the issue, though, like, pretty much every scene ends in a cliffhanger. There's so much stuff going on, and
yeah, each character kind of has their own cliffhanger happening with them. You know, the sister had the boyfriend she just slept with head bleed in front of her, and he dropped to the floor. So many of those characters just had their lives turned over, and what can this mean for the future? And you know, it was kind of cool as a dude to be reading this and like, oh man, if I was Yorick, I would be tearing it up with the ladies because there's no competition, you know. I am going to be.
That's definitely touched
number one. yeah, and that's probably, I would have not gone on any adventures. I would have not investigated any mysteries. I would have not gone to look for the girlfriend. It would have just been hedonism, Drew and hedonism.
Oh, God. And if I'm not mistaken, his kind of motivation at the beginning of the story, at least, is to find his girlfriend, right?
Yes, okay. That's kind of the driving MacGuffin to get him going, is to find her, and it keeps him moving forward throughout the series, through some crazy twists and turns, lots of adventures, and some are fun explorations of what happens when all the men leave. You know, some of the things that are explored are like that are male dominated occupations. So who does that work in those male dominated occupations now? You know, the women have to fill that void, and there's some fun explorations there. There is, you know, the idea of, without men, women have to turn to each other for, you know, sex and affection and things like that. So that's explored. And then the fact that they introduce a guy back into that, he is sought after in some of the issues in the future. And then there's these overarching mysteries and conspiracy theories, and we have to find out these answers as the series unwinds. And I remember, I don't know if I thought it ended well, but I don't know if I was 100% satisfied that everything was in a nice bow at the end, and it doesn't have to be. But I felt I'd put in 60 issues, and I don't remember if I was 100% satisfied with the ending. So take that for a grain of salt, with a grain of salt as well, because but 60 issues is still applaudable, especially in today's comic market where nothing gets there. It's a heck of a run.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier when we were talking about how many issues there have been. Not even just talking about big 2 books, but there are very few independent series that ever make it this far.
No, Invincible's ending.
Yeah. Well, that's, that's an exception. I mean, it started a while ago, too. Yeah,
Walking Dead's going for a while.
But you look at most Image series, most of them don't really get much further past 20, 30 tops. I don't really see many in their 40s at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think over at Vertigo you've got Astro City getting close to 50. Mm-hmm. And that's had multiple volumes, and Kurt Busiek's had illness problems and just put it down and picked it up. So it hasn't been consecutive all along, but I think this run's been close to consecutive. But yeah, there's not a ton of them. I mean, and you think about, I'm thinking about singular creative visions too. Dan Slott's been on Spider-Man for a long time. So he would probably be close to or over 100 at this point. Because he's been on Spider-Man for years and years and years. So, and even though it's changed title and renumbered, it's kind of had his creative vision attached to it. So there are some, but it's more the exception than the rule for sure.
Mm-hmm. And that page where page near the end where it starts showing all the men die. I mean, there's this, well, at least in the trade that I have. That's great. The trade I have right now has these 2 pages side by side. The first one, well, it has that black panel that says now, and it shows the men dying in the context.
Your black panel says now in the top of it?
Yeah, it does. The one right above.
So right above his mother?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm reading a reprint, Vertigo Essentials #1.
Okay, I think the volume I have is the newest. I think it's the newest trade. That's interesting.
So I'd have to get I have a few Y the Last Man #1, so I'd have to crack open another one to see if it has it in there, or if maybe it was printed poorly. Let me grab my box.
Right.
So I'm gonna just flip through the other version that I have. Let's see what this. I don't have the trade here.
You don't have a first print of it, do you? Of the issue?
I have the Vertigo Essentials version, and I have #1. Yes, and it has now in it.
Okay, so that's weird.
So yeah, that's the initial print. Yeah. Huh. So this Vertigo Essentials didn't print the now on there, which now I know why Black Band is in there.
Yeah, when you said that, I was kind of flipping around looking for it. And...
Yeah. What are you missing there, Drew? Dum.
Yeah. So this one page shows the characters from all the scenes we've seen before. You know, we see York's mother, we see the soldier, we see Agent 355, I think it was, and then we see Hero, and the men are dying all in those scenes. And then I really like how that zooms out and shows us that this is happening all over the world. And I think it's really smart. He only has these 4 panels that he starts with 4 panels, but it actually continues on to the next page. But shows Tokyo Stock Exchange. Just, I think everybody in there is male, so they're all dead. And then there's Vatican City, and it just shows a nun with a priest in her arms who's dying.
That's Tokyo Stock Exchange?
Yeah, the first panel is, yeah.
Oh, I thought that was I thought that was like the senators.
Nope.
Oh, okay, I missed that.
Yeah, and then the third panel like made me tear up a little bit because that's kind of what reveals to you that it's not just humans; it's like all males of all species, and it has this little girl on a farm, and there some dead cows around her, and she has a dead puppy in her arms too, and says, "Daddy, I think Buck is sick." And
so you're okay with 4 billion males dying, men dying, but you get upset if the puppy dies.
I think what got me upset was the reaction that the girl had.
Oh, yeah.
Where, meanwhile, people are getting scared and stuff and sad, but this is a little girl and her puppy just died. She doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, that's true.
Just that helplessness. Oh boy. Yeah.
And the fact that we are jumping everywhere, so we're all over the world, and it's happening everywhere. So nobody is safe. At least it looks like no one is safe. So that's a devastating virus or whatever it is that's caused all this to happen, and it's crazy. This is the sort of, I don't know, you call this sci-fi, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it really, a little bit of mystery, a little bit of sci-fi, adventure.
Not hard sci-fi, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I'd probably say it's an adventure comic at its core, but definitely has elements from, pretty much everything. There's horror in here too. True. Then again, I haven't read most of the series, so what do I know?
Does rereading this first issue get you any more excited to want to finish it? Or
yeah, it really did.
Is it still the same stack that you had it in before?
I've been meaning to reread it for a while, so I'm really glad we're getting into this, and I actually just picked up the first volume today so I could reread it. But yeah, I read this back when, I think I was back in high school when I read the first volume. So it's been a while, and I'm really excited to get into the rest of this.
Well, this has been collected and recollected and repackaged in absolute editions, and I don't know if you have there's a good Economawalk library system up there, but
yeah, there actually is.
Yeah, I would go and check. I would bet that there's some really cool hardcover versions, oversized hardcover versions of this that I haven't pulled the trigger on myself to buy, but I've flipped through them, and they're beautiful.
I was tempted to get one of the big hardcovers, but
yeah, they're expensive.
Money. Extra $10, and I don't need it.
Yeah, eventually I will own deluxe editions of everything Brian K. Vaughan did. I think one of these days that the bookshelf will, alongside, I'll have Watchmen, the absolute edition of Watchmen, the absolute Sandman, the deluxe Dark Knight Returns. There's some of these amazing things, and then I'm going to have my compendium, my Walking Dead compendiums, and like the full bibliography of Brian K. Vaughan is going to be up there, because I think he's a master, and I love his sensibility. I love the way I love his craft, and he and I gel as far as the stuff he writes speaks to me, and it works for me. So yeah, this is good stuff, and it's a great first issue, and it really does a great job of building that world and saying, are you on board or not? And what more can you ask for?
Yeah, and just flipping through this, I just noticed something. it may have significance, it may not, but the first panel where it shows his girlfriend in Australia, seems like she's kind of out in the middle of nowhere in nature, but there are these interesting carvings on, they look like ancient paintings or carvings on these rocks.
Yeah.
And they kind of draw attention to it in one of the panels, and I feel like that might have some sort of significance. I don't know.
Maybe. I can't remember that. This thing meanders, as you can imagine, over 60 issues. Mm-hmm. There are some side quests and things that occur. So it might have been addressed.
Yeah.
I can't remember. It's been a while. I probably read this in 2013, something like that. So I've kind of forgotten. I like the art. I like Pia Guerra's art. He's done. I think he's with Jason Aaron on The Goddamned right now, and I think they worked together on Scalp, didn't they?
Is that the same artist?
I'm not sure. I was thinking it was.
Pia Guerra. I'm looking it up right now, actually. Pia Guerra. Oh, it's actually a woman.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
This book. And bibliography. Oh, it only looks like she's done 2 things. Why the Last Man and some Doctor Who book. I think R.M. Guerra, is that?
R.M. Guerra. Okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They did Scalp together.
I mean, easy to get the 2 mixed up. But yeah, art is very good, very clear storytelling. And also, who colors this too? Because
Pia Guerra's done more penciling than that. She did Y.
I was just
Sex and Death.
Okay.
Are you on ComicsDB?
No, I was just looking on Wikipedia. So.
Okay.
Maybe I'm just
Adventures of Superman.
Okay.
Black Canary, Bruiser, Dark Horse Presents, Elephant Men. Yeah, she's done some stuff.
Okay.
But Y is her best well-known work.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty well-known work, so it'd be hard to top that.
Man, can we edit out where I got Pia Guerra and R.M. Guerra confused?
If you want, I can do that for you.
No, I'm just kidding. You can leave it in.
I'll leave that in though. You ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, all in all, I think it's a great read. And yeah, again, I like when it works, when they check all the boxes. Creators, give you something that is not only awesome to read and makes you want to read more, but also kind of like get you inspired to raise your game a little bit. And as a writer myself, I don't write creative stuff like fiction. I kind of work in writing. That's my job, so it's not the same, but it does kind of it still inspires me to want to raise my game. And of course, I've got these ideas kicking around in my head that if I could find the right artist, and I would love to try to get them on the page someday. And when you see stuff like this that's so great, you're like, oh, yes, I want to do this. I want to do something this good. And I find it inspiring. So it's great stuff.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really, really dense issue, but doesn't drag.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
And it's not overwhelming either.
I mean,
surprisingly enough.
Would you introduce as many characters in 20 some pages, 30 pages? I don't think I would. I don't think I would even try. I think I would drib them and drab them out and meet them in later issues. Yeah, I don't think I would try to pull this off.
If it's too complex. I would probably give most of them like one line, or just have them show up in the background, not have each of them have their own scene, because how many scenes in this one?
Yeah.
I could count, but maybe like.
But they're all established.
Or something.
Yeah, there's nearly 10 characters that are kind of fleshed out here,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know that I would even attempt to pull that off. Were I to try to write a story, I don't think I would do that in 30 pages.
Well, BKV is a master.
Yeah, he's not scared.
No. All right. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, not really. I mean, I think we hit all the high notes, and I recommend this book to anyone. You can get this Vertigo Essentials. You can get like $1 versions of this first issue if you want to sample it yourself. The intro trade is probably around $14 if you want to get the first 6.
Yeah.
Check your library and you can read the whole thing there if you want to, because it's great. But I think you'll love it, and I think more people should read it because it's great stuff, and it's a tamed version of Saga, so it's not quite as out there as Saga, but it has its moments. It has its moments.
Yeah, and I would probably second it, even though I haven't read much. I would really recommend it. Just 'cause, I mean, it's written really well, and it's, as I said, it has this cinematic feel, and it's a good book. And if you don't,
It's a good book.
If you don't trust us, look at pretty much any like top 25, top 10 list of comics that you should read, and it'll probably be on there.
That's true. It is on there, and the thing's been optioned a couple of times. It's been optioned for as a movie, and it's been optioned as a television series. I think it reverted back to BKV because they couldn't pull it off from one of the option periods. Part of me really wants to see it, a lot like Preacher on AMC. I think it would work great. And then part of me is like, maybe it should just stay where it is. But I like it so much that I want. I think I would enjoy whatever, as long as it's not. I don't know. It'd have to be done. I think Preacher's being done well on AMC. Some folks disagree, but this is the type of book that would need to have that kind of treatment where they can get away with some stuff and get some of that on the screen that's on the book, but yet break it up into manageable chunks over seasons and not try to cram things into a movie, which was a fool's errand. There was no way they were going to be able to fit 60 issues into a 2.5-hour movie.
Yeah, no way. Yeah, sometimes I feel like most of the time I feel like I'm okay things just being a book because I don't know, I feel if people are like, oh, there should be a movie about this, I think it kind of undermines the medium that it was originally on. But
yeah, I can see that.
I think if a movie or some other adaptation does something different with it or presents it in a certain way, definitely enjoy that. I mean, if they can bring the characters to life, I think that's what matters the most.
Yeah, I guess for me, I think it's a kind of like at that point, it's a celebration of that story and those characters because, I mean, I don't know how many times I'll read Why the Last Man over and over again. Do you find yourself reading a lot of things over and over that are your favorites, or do you just keep reading new stuff?
Honestly, I don't find myself rereading that much just because there's so much to read out there.
Yeah.
But a few things I've read quite a bit. Punk Rock Jesus by Sean Murphy I've read a few times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Morrison's Animal Man. That's one.
No, I've never finished that.
Yeah, I strongly recommend that one.
That might be fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. Issue. Oh gosh, is it issue 5 or 7 or? I don't know, but there's one with this coyote that keeps dying and coming back to life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Grant Morrison's one of those guys that he's also really good.
Mm-hmm. Definitely,
yeah.
He's very much in his own world, so I feel like sometimes he's a hit or miss. He used to be my favorite writer. I mean, he still is one of my favorites. But I definitely prefer his older DC work. I mean, Animal Man and Doom Patrol are my two favorites of his. So
yeah, it's like there was something he did for Image called Nameless, I think, and I couldn't get into that one. It was weird.
Yeah, and I like Chris Burnham, who does the art for that too. But
I like him. Yeah.
And I mean, I love weird, ominous, just obscure stuff, but that was kind of like, okay, this isn't
okay.
This isn't bad, but
yeah,
it's. I mean,
but then there's Claws that you guys reviewed. Or discussed in depth in like a 7 hour episode that you broke into two pieces or something. That's a masterwork in my mind. That thing was wonderful too. So yeah, I hate to say there's good Grant Morrison and bad Grant Morrison, because I think none of it's bad, but there's something that's more my speed. Mm-hmm. And that was definitely one of them.
I see what you mean there. Definitely. All right.
And even though I love Brian K. Vaughan, he has misfired a couple for me, and I haven't actually finished his entire works. Everything that he's done from Marvel and DC, I didn't go back and I haven't read all of that Swamp Thing run that he was on, and there's some other things that I haven't finished. So I think they're not all home runs, but man, he has a heck of a batting average with me. It's Hall of Fame status.
He is great. All right, you got any last thoughts on the book or anything else?
No, man. I appreciate the invite, and thanks for letting me talk about this comic for an hour and a half.
I appreciate having you on. Where can people find you and your show online?
Oh, we're at comicsfunprofit.com, and you can find all our links to our different social media and emails, ways to get a hold of us that way. So, yeah. comicsfunprofit.com. Thanks.
You can follow me on Twitter at Clint Stout. It's Clint, Staut. Follow the show at Comics That Work. Just keep up on updates on the show, when episodes come out, what books we'll be talking about next. If you have any questions, you can email at comicsthatwork@gmail.com. And subscribe to the show on iTunes and leave a review. And I think that's it. Next episode, I'm going to have James on again from Cowcast. He was on the first episode. And we're going to be talking about Hitman number 34 by Garth Ennis and John McCrae.
Interesting choice.
Yeah, I think it's the issue where Superman shows up.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So that'll be fun.
Oh, we should do a crossed. We should do a crossed version of this before the mini-con that they're having in October.
Yeah. For I haven't announced this on there, but Cowabunga Comics, Cowabunga spelled with a K, in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. On October 27th, Garth Ennis is doing a 28th. Okay, 28th.
Pretty sure. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure it's 28th. It's a Saturday, right?
Yeah, Saturday.
28th.
It's going to be a little crazy with parking and everything, but Garth Ennis is going to be there. He doesn't do many signings in the U.S., so that'll be pretty crazy.
That'll be pretty awesome, yeah.
Yeah, and you're coming to visit, actually, right?
Yeah, I tricked my wife into thinking it's her birthday weekend getaway. So we're coming up, we got a B&B up there, and then I'm just going to go out for bread or something on Saturday morning and then not come back for 10 hours.
Nice.
I'll be at the comic shop. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're coming all the way from Ohio, right?
Yeah, Southeast Ohio. Yeah, so
that's a far away.
It's like 8 to 10 hour drive.
It's worth it though. So if anybody's doing this and is a little bit further away, make the commute. Other people are doing it.
I can if you're somewhere in northern Ohio, I can pick you up on the way.
Be careful.
Drop you off.
I don't know if any any werewolves or scary people listen to this.
It's true. Maybe not.
All right, so I think that wraps it up. Thanks for being on the show, Drew.
All right, man. Take care.